Hey, what's up YouTube? I'm Kevin Yu, your host, producer, gardener, cameraman, director, landscaper, whatever. Welcome to the very first video of my brand new YouTube channel, Happy You Gardening. Behind me here is our family vegetable garden here in the wonderful suburbs of Philadelphia on this beautiful Mother's Day weekend morning. I wanted to kick off this channel, introduce you to my garden, and give you a rundown of my season-long experiment to get to the bottom of the question: what kind of raised bed soil mix is best for raised vegetable gardens? So let's get my face off the screen and give you a better view of my garden. Alright, so our garden is comprised of 3 separate raised beds. The previous 2 summers we had a single 8-foot by 8-foot garden, and that first summer we simply grew right in our native soil, which is an awesome mixture of clay and some more clay. And after seeing some really poor results that year, I decided to build a temporary 8-foot by 8-foot raised bed last summer to see if it really was the clay or if it was the gardener, meaning me. And with the raised beds last year, we were a lot happier with the quality and the quantity that came out of our garden. So this year, we decided to step things up a little bit, and I just built these 3 separate raised beds about a month and a half ago. And I'm still working on some finishing touches, but we have already started many of our veggies. And some of you probably already recognize the grid that we've made in our beds here. For those of you who don't, we're trying out a technique called square foot gardening, which is why we have tied off our beds with the garden twine to create these 12-inch by 12-inch squares. Again, we have 3 beds here. The bed on the left is 8-foot by 3-foot, and the other 2 are 8-foot by 4-foot. And you can see that we did build our garden on the slope, so it took some additional lumber and a bit longer for us to build our beds. Now, while planning out our garden, we also started doing some homework on how to fill these beds, because we knew that we needed a lot of filling. And though we wanted to have a nice healthy harvest, we also wanted to be cost conscious. And to give you an idea, the lumber here alone costs about $150, and based on what we learned, we knew that we could possibly spend at least a few more $100 just on soil, depending on the route that we took. So instead, I decided to get a little creative this year and took this opportunity to test out the question that many of us gardeners have: what garden bed soil mix works best? For any of you who might have already done some homework on the internet, you've probably already come across the 2 most common answers on the ideal do-it-yourself raised gardening soil mix. One of them is called Mel's Mix, which is a mixture of compost, peat moss, and vermiculite. And this was made popular by Mel Bartholomew, the founder of Square Foot Garden Technique that we're using here. And another common mixture is made of just compost and topsoil. So let's take a look at each one of these beds to show you more of these 2 types of mixes, along with the third one in our other bed. Alright, so here in the first bed, I filled it with a mixture of Miracle-Gro's garden soil and Miracle-Gro's Nature's Care raised bed soil, both that we purchased on sale at Home Depot during their spring Black Friday sale just about a month ago. Over here in the second bed, the one in the middle, I filled it with Mel's Mix, which is a mixture of 1 part compost, 1 part peat moss, and 1 part vermiculite. And with the compost, they recommend that you include at least 3 different sources of compost so that you have a nice mix of nutrients to start off with, which is what I did here in our garden. Online, you'll read a lot of people who say that this mix is too expensive to make in large quantities, and guess what? They're right. This mix is not cheap to make, particularly the vermiculite, which can cost you up to about $10 per cubic foot. Plus, I don't know if I've ever seen compost or peat moss go on sale here in my area. But most people, along with myself, see great results using this mix in raised beds and containers. But again, it's just too cost restrictive for larger gardens. So lastly, in our third bed here, I used 2 different techniques to keep the cost down, since this is the deepest bed and required the largest amount of soil. So what I did first to bring up the height of the base was using a technique called the lasagna technique, and it's exactly what it sounds like, which is where you layer your bed with many different types of materials. So I first laid down a layer of old potting mix from all of my old containers over there on the deck. Then I filled it with a bunch of branches and twigs up to about 1 inch in diameter. And then I topped that off with a layer of native soil. Then on top of that, I put a layer of composting leaves, and then finally another layer of native soil. Now over time, this material will compact out, so I know I'll have to add more fill in the coming years, which is why I also didn't fill this one as high as my other two beds. So after all of that, I then topped off this bed with the other commonly recommended garden soil mix of topsoil and compost. And for this mixture, it is just a 1-to-1 ratio of 1 part topsoil and 1 part compost. And again, like our other bed, I use 3 different types of compost to try to balance out the nutrients. So 3 different beds, 3 different soil mixes. And I'm curious about a few things with my little experiment here, and what I'm looking for is I want to see which one will result in faster and or healthier growing plants. I'm curious to know which one will provide a bigger harvest. And lastly, is there any noticeable difference in the quality and the taste of the vegetables? So I've already kicked off the experiment with a number of veggies, including some tomato and pepper plants, some radish, some carrots, and some greens. And most of these have been in for about 2 weeks, so we're really just getting started here. So if you're interested in seeing what happens and want to know whether one soil mix is a clear winner, be sure to subscribe to my channel, and I'll be sure to provide all of you with updates throughout the season. Thank you for watching. Until next time, happy gardening.